Hello, everyone. I'm Huangwei from National University of Singapore. So welcome to the Pre-ASPACC webinar series. The 15th Asia-Pacific Conference on Combustion will be held in Singapore next May from 18th to 22nd. So today we will have the special webinar, meet the ASPACC 2025 committees. So we will have three presentations. The first will be about history of ASPACC and outlook. So this will be given by Professor Assaad Masri from University of Sydney. He is the chair of the steering committee of ASPACC. The second presentation will be about ASPACC paper reviews, proceed publication insights, awards, and also pre-conference workshops. So this presentation will be given by Professor Chen from Peking University and Professor Mani Sarathy from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. So they are the co-chairs of the technical program committee. And the last talk will be given by Professor Chen from Nanyang Technological University. So he will be talking about the combustion research in Singapore and the local preparation of ASPACC 2025. So now I would like to give the time to Professor Assaad Masri to talk about the history and outlook of ASPACC. Assaad, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Zhang. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, in the right mode. Good. Thank you very much. So let me start off here by thanking Professor Zhang and Professor Chen Li and others, and also Lina for organizing this session and for the invitation. I think I'm tasked with the business of just giving you a bit of background about the ASPACC conference series, which as is now quite a successful series. It was conceived back in 1996. And it was conceived then through discussions between the chairs of five sections of the Combustion Institute. So let me just move to the next slide. It was conceived then through discussions between the Australia New Zealand section of the Combustion Institute, China, the Chinese section, the Taiwan section, Japan, and Korea as well. And the objective was to, as it says here, it's to promote regional interactions and elevate state-of-the-art combustion technology through regional and global scientific partnerships. So the first meeting was held in Osaka in 1997, and I scanned here just a couple of snippets there of the proceedings of the 1997 meeting. One was the title page, the first page of the proceedings there, showing the venue and the organizing section. And another one, the first page about the lectures, the plenary lectures and the keynote lectures. And the late Professor Bob Bilger was honored by giving the first lecture on new directions in turbulent combustion research at the time. And I was also privileged to give a first keynote lecture on laser diagnostics in turbulent combustion. So that meeting was well attended, given that it was the first meeting, and it really showed at the time that there was quite a bit of appetite for another regional meeting in combustion in parallel with the main combustion symposium, which was also growing, and was getting probably a little bit too big. At the time, there wasn't many other regional meetings as there was now, but there was a lot of growth in the Asia section. So the timing of that conference was really well timed. And since then, there has been quite significant growth there. The India section of the Combustion Institute has joined in 2007. In 2013, the Saudi Arabia section, which was very active at the time, which became active, obviously, after the initiation of CAUS. And then more recently, through the efforts of Professor Huangwei Zhang and his team, the Singapore section joined in 2023 and scored the first ASPACC to be held in Singapore in 2025, which you're all invited to attend. So we look forward to seeing many of you there. That's a bit of a historical overview of where this meeting has gone over time. And I'll show you in the next slide a bit about the statistics and the presentation and the number of parallel sessions and so on. But you can see from Osaka in 1997, it went all around the ASPAC nations, from Taiwan to Korea to China to Australia and then back to Japan. And it circled a number of times before it diverted again to Abu Dhabi. As it was organized, that particular meeting in 2021 was organized by the Saudi Arabia section. It was a bit unfortunate because it just happened during COVID. So even though originally we thought that we can hold this meeting in person, it was not to be, and it was held fully online. Still attracted quite a significant number of papers, but it was nevertheless done online. The subsequent meeting in Kaohsiung, Taiwan in 2023 was a hybrid meeting. It was attended in person, and quite many of us have attended that meeting there, but also it was offered online as well. And there we are now preparing for the 2025 meeting, which will be held in person. On the bottom end of that screen, you will see the hosting frequency of the various sections. Japan hosted 3 times, Taiwan hosted 3 times, China and Australia 2, and Korea and the other nations are also going through as well. I think the India section will have will be the next host after Singapore, so it will host it in 2027. Some statistics about the attendance and the level of interest and so on from these meetings. So that's, again, the table here is split in 2. So we start from the bottom right-hand side in Osaka, where there was 150 papers. And we started quite healthy at the time with 4 parallel sessions at the Osaka meeting. And then we started to grow at the Gwangju meeting in Korea in 2013, where we increased the number of sessions to 255. The number of papers increased to 260. And from there on, we went on our community went on a significant increase, a bit nonlinear as well. So the number of papers went from 266 in 13 to 380, 390, 387, 450 in Fukuoka in Japan at the 2019 meeting just before COVID. And at that time, it was more like our main conference. We had 10 parallel sessions there, attended by 610 registrants. So that was really the peak at the time. And then we were deflated a little bit by COVID. So the Abu Dhabi meeting had 224 papers, 348 registrants, so it's still quite significant given that this meeting was online. And then we started to pick up again in Kaohsiung in Taiwan with 304 papers and 430 registrants. And we're really hoping that we spike again at the Singapore meeting with probably, hopefully we can hit 500 papers and certainly more than 600 registrants at the Singapore meeting. And we need every one of you now to submit those papers. The deadline is not too far. So overall, this is a very healthy regional meeting that is really responding to the needs of the region, and it's really showing that this part of the world, the Asia-Pacific region, as I called it when I was talking to the Chinese section of the Combustion Institute, this is really the dynamo of combustion research in the rest of the world, I think superseding what's happening in the United States as well as what's happening in Europe. So these are some statistics that the team has kindly assembled there. for the past 4 meetings, the past 4 conferences there, which are again, the Kaohsiung conference, the Abu Dhabi conference, the Japan and the Australian meeting. So a total of 1,386 papers are presented, and you can see here distributed in colloquia how many each one of these colloquia has contributed over time. So you can see the engines, for example, was quite healthy. Kinetics, fire research, sprays, solid fuel combustion, turbulent flames, a fairly even split there across the various colloquia. This is some more statistics about the comparison between the number of papers that were submitted, which is in green, and the number of papers that were accepted. The papers go through a vetting process, a peer review process. Normally, we seek about 2 reviews per paper, if not more. And we seek quality, and we want to maintain a high quality of presentation. So you can see there is quite a decrease between the number of submissions and the number of acceptances there. Not as brutal as it is in the main conference, because we do want to allow early career people and PhD students to come and present, but I think the quality needs to be maintained. And I'll talk a little bit about quality in a minute when we're talking about the PROSI options. Some more details about the statistics for the various conferences, starting with the ASPACC 2017. That shows here the number of papers accepted per colloquium, and I've already shown in the previous slide the number of papers that were contributed in total, and you can see it's fairly well distributed amongst the various colloquia. We tend to use in these meetings the same colloquia that are used by the main combustion symposium. So this is now the 2019. Here the solid fuel combustion contribution there has increased. Laminar flames in the 2021 colloquium was quite popular. And I must say here, what applied from 2017 onwards to these meetings is that we started to give these meetings a theme that is commensurate with the push towards clean combustion and decarbonization and so on, which is a trend that is followed quite faithfully by a lot of our community members. And the next meeting, 2025, has a similar theme towards clean combustion and decarbonization. Again, more statistics about the last meeting, 2023. Laminar flames fell below 10%. Reaction kinetics increased again. And so on. It'll be interesting to see which topics will be more popular in 2025. Now, so that's a bit of background. Let's look into the future. For those who are interested in hosting future meetings, there's quite a bit of detail there on the web. And there is also a template that people may like to follow. If you're interested in bidding for the next meeting, I mean, the one, not for the next meeting is already decided to go to India, but the 2029 meeting onwards, email me or email Professor Zhang. We can, and also, there is a web link here that you can access, but we can send some information to you to guide the process, the bidding process. And the bidding process is very simple. The bids are vetted by the steering committee, and the decision is normally made one meeting before the 2 years before, but sometimes we make the decision of deciding on, if we have too many bidders, of deciding for 2 meetings at a time. One thing that many of you would be aware of, but I will say it regardless because it is important, is now the option to publish another PROSI publication in the odd years. So that's been announced to the various sections, so many of you would know about it. And the 4 conferences that are initially chosen as first caps of the rank are this meeting, the Asia Pacific Conference on Combustion, as well as the Mediterranean Combustion Conference, which is also happening in 2025, the US National Combustion Meeting, which is happening in April, early in the year, in March, I think, and the European Combustion Meeting as well. So these meetings happen sequentially in the first half of 2025, starting from March, I think, until June. So a number of papers will be selected for consideration for publication in a nod-year proce. Each one of these conferences will have one issue, one special issue, and the papers that will be selected for acceptance for proce will be of high quality. So I encourage you all to improve the quality of your papers and submit with the intention that your paper is of sufficiently high quality that can proceed to proce. The ASPACC, the next meeting in Singapore, has offered 2 modes of submission. One is a 4-pager where the authors do not want to send it to proce, and the second one is an 8-page submission for those who have their papers whose papers may qualify for posting. And there'll be a 2 vetting process. Initial process will be by the paper committee and the program co-chairs of the ASPACC conference, and the second vetting will be through a second review process once it's submitted to proce. We can send you more details if you like, and also more details are available on the web as well. But I think quality is of the essence here, so it's very important for those submitting with the intention to send their paper for the paper to be selected to proce, that the quality of the paper needs to be quite high. Again, I'm running out of time, but I'll just talking about the future. Our ASPACC meetings are growing in numbers and contributions, but also growing in terms of the number of nations that we'd like to have join the ASPACC meetings. I'm currently having discussions with various scientists from Vietnam. So we can hopefully, and this hopefully can lead to maybe an initiation or an establishment of a section of the Combustion Institute in Vietnam, as we did, as Professor Zhang did in Singapore, and then later on maybe join the ASPACC League of Nations. And then hopefully down the line, Malaysia and Indonesia would be 2 other countries that are potentially, or that potentially could join the ASPACC League of Nations, and maybe later on become sections of the Combustion Institute. I took a little bit more time than I'm allowed to, so apologies about that, but happy to answer questions, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Assaad, for your very informative talk and giving us an overview about ASPACC, and also sharing the exciting news about the ASPACC paper publication, in proce. Okay, so for the audience, if you have any questions, you can submit your question to Q&A. So we will answer, the presenters will answer it after all the presentations. Okay, thank you, Assaad. So now we will move to the second presentation, which will be given by Professor Chen and Professor Sarathy about the ASPACC 2025 technical program. So please.
Thank you, Huangwei. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. This is Zheng Chen. I will present about the technical program with Professor Sarathy. So here is my outline. So we will talk about basically the program themes and the curriculum, and also the committee and the keynote and the event talks, and also workshops and the review process and awards. Basically, I will introduce the first 4 parts, and then Manny will introduce the last 3 parts. So first is about the technical program themes. Basically, for the ASPACC 2025, the theme is about building a zero carbon and sustainable future. We will study advanced research on decarbonization, promoting sustainable combustion technologies, and fostering regional and global collaboration to address the challenges of climate change and environmental sustainability. For the ASPACC 2025, we have, this is a mistake, we have 12 curriculum topics. This is similar to the combustion symposium. The first one is gas phase reaction kinetics. The second one is heterogeneous combustion. Third one is flame dynamics and transport processes. And then we have detonation, explosion, and supersonic combustion. 5 is turbulent flames, and then fire. And 7th is propulsion. And 8th is combustion technology. Number 9 is emission mitigation from flames. Number 10 is low carbon technologies. And number 11 is diagnostics. And the last one is about numerical combustion. Basically, we have 2 committees. The first one is steering committees. The chairs are from Professor Chen from Nanyang Technical University of Singapore and Professor Masri from University of Sydney. The members are from different regions and countries. Professor Liu from USTC in China, Professor Pandey from India, and Professor Maruta from Tohoku University in Japan, Professor Jackie Yu from Seoul National University in Korea, and Professor Bassam Dali from KOST, Saudi Arabia, and also Professor Ho from Kunshan University in Taiwan. And here is the the technical program committee. We have 3 co-chairs, Professor Huangwei Zhang, Professor Mani Sarathy, and myself. Besides the curriculum co-chairs, we also have a curriculum committee for each 12 curriculums. Basically, for each curriculums, we have 2 or 3 curriculum co-chairs. The name I just listed here, I will not repeat all the names. And this is basically technical program. This is a tentative program. Basically, on Sunday, May 18th, we will have registration and a welcome reception on Sunday evening. And then on Monday, we will have opening ceremony and the plenary lecture. And also on Monday, we have 2 keynotes and several parallel sessions. On Tuesday, we have 2 keynote speaker presentation and also have a parallel presentation in the morning. And after lunch, we have the excursion in Singapore. And on Wednesday, we have another 2 keynote speakers to present their work. And we also have several parallel sessions. And in the evening of the Wednesday, we will have the banquet. And the last day is on Thursday. We have the last keynote speaker to present his work. And also we have several parallel sessions. And in the afternoon, we will have a farewell party. So here is the information about keynote talks and the invite talks. So basically, each combustion institute session will feature 1 distinguished keynote talk, and is selected based on the recommendation from representative CI sessions, with the final selection made by the TPC and the steering committee. Basically, the suggestion recommendation is from the steering committee members from each country or regimes. We will have a suggestion for this kind of keynote speakers. And for the invited talks, it's scheduled within the parallel sessions. It depends on the topic and the contents of the sessions. It will be invited by the technical program committee. All the speakers from both keynote and the invite talks are encouraged to submit a manuscript to the proceed. Basically, this is also it will be peer reviewed. It's not guaranteed to be accepted, but after peer review, it will make a decision by the editor of the proceed. So now it goes to the webinars. Maybe Manny, can you, go ahead.
Okay, so for the webinars, we plan to have a pre-conference webinar series. We've already been conducting several of these webinars, and hopefully you have been attending them. So in the pre-conference webinar series, we aim to explore many of the latest advancements in the combustion research. So in September, we had the first pre-conference webinar series with Professor Huangwei Zhang, Professor Augustine Valerie Medina, and Dr. Gennady Belal, talking about hydrogen and ammonia energy for power. And in October, we had a second one on how to achieve sustainability using intelligent technologies, hosted by Professor Wiley Chan, Professor Matthias Ime was a speaker, and Dr. Harpreet Sethi. We will be conducting these on a monthly basis. The November seminar series is essentially this Meet the ASPACC 2025 committee. So please keep an eye out, because these webinars will provide the platform for experts in academia, industry, and government to share insights and reflect on the progress and contributions of combustion research in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. And of course, it will align us with the overall theme of the ASPACC that will happen in May, which is to build a zero carbon and a sustainable future. At the end of this month, we will have the battery and EV, electric vehicle fire safety and resilience webinar. And all the past webinars will be available to view on YouTube. Next slide, please. So in addition to these webinars, the 2 days prior to the start of the conference, we will be hosting some pre-conference workshops. These are in the spirit of most of our prior combustion meetings, an opportunity for specific groups within the combustion community to meet together and share recent developments in their specific areas of research. We will do these pre-conference workshops on Saturday and Sunday, May 17th and May 18th, prior to the registration of ASPACC in the afternoon. The venue will be in the university town of National University of Singapore in US, within its auditorium and lecture halls. And these are very well-equipped facilities for hosting participants. There's spaces for up to 100 posters to be placed, and plenty of seating for guests and for presentations to be held. We are not deciding on what are the pre-conference workshops. These will be submitted by applications from interested organizations and individuals. So if you are interested to have a pre-conference workshop, please apply by contacting the organizing committee of ASPACC 2025, and we will do our best to support your application and see if we can include it in the pre-conference workshop series. We hope this will pave the way towards a very fruitful ASPACC meeting, which will start on Sunday afternoon. Next slide, please. So this is a proposed agenda for the pre-conference workshop. So you can choose to have a one-day workshop or 1.5 days. So the morning of Saturday, May 18th, you can start your workshop with a registration and a morning session, a coffee break, and have a second morning session prior to lunch, which will be a lunch buffet, which we will help to organize with the specific workshop organizers. And then in the afternoon, again, 2 more sessions with a coffee break in the middle. And then on the Sunday, if requested by a workshop organizer, we can have another half day taking you through morning sessions and then lunch, and then a closing discussion prior to the ASPACC registration, which will happen around 3:34 p.m. on Sunday, May 18th. Next slide, please. So in addition to these pre-conference workshops and the webinars that I've talked about, within the ASPACC program, we aim to highlight the impact of combustion research on industry. And we know very well that ASPACC is one of the leading industrial regions for combustion applications for many different sectors. And at ASPACC 2025, we want to feature this dedicated industry session to build that bridge between combustion research done in universities and institutes and real-world applications which are being translated into society by industries. These sessions will facilitate the dialogue between industry leaders and academic researchers to develop this mutual understanding of how the market demands are driving the need and the imperative for advances in the science of combustion research. We aim to include some highlights such as the challenges and solutions that industry is presented with, showcasing specific technologies across various sectors using combustion-based systems, provide networking opportunities, panel discussions, and also a Q&A. These industry sessions will be placed within the parallel sessions that Professor Zheng Chen presented earlier in the agenda. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to elaborate a bit more on Professor Masri's discussion about the paper options, both the 4-page papers and the 8-page Pro-C odd-year papers. So ASPACC traditionally has this platform of submitting a 4-page paper for review and acceptance for oral presentation. Now that we are bringing in a Pro-C odd-year option, we will also be including 8-page paper submissions. Both the 4-page papers and the 8-page papers will be reviewed by the program committee, which includes Professor Zheng Chen, myself, Huangwei Zheng, and the others that you're meeting on this call today. We will send all papers, 4-page papers and 8-page papers, out for peer review, typically 2 to 3 reviewers per paper. And we will assess the quality of these papers, and we will make a decision if these papers are suitable for presentation in ASPACC. The papers that meet high quality for presentation in ASPACC will be sent an acceptance notice, regardless if it's a 4-page or an 8-page paper. And those papers which do not meet the quality for presentation as an oral paper will be sent a rejection notice. Now, because we have this Pro-C odd-year opportunity as well, a selection of the 8-page papers, which have exceptional ratings in the peer review process conducted by the ASPACC program committee, will be sent to the Pro-C editorial committee for rebuttals and the second peer review process, which will be independent. If we go to the next slide, I will elaborate that a bit more. So this Pro-C odd-year paper peer review process will be developed in consultation with the current editors of the Proceeding of the Combustion Institute, Professor Fei Qi and Professor Deanna Lacoste. They will be managing the editorial process for all the odd-year submissions across all the different sections which we talked about earlier: Mediterranean, European, US. So we, as a program committee, we will recommend the high quality papers, 8-page papers submitted to ASPACC, which will go to the Pro-C editorial board for further review. The authors will respond to the comments that the ASPACC reviewers provided before submitting their paper to the Pro-C editorial manager site. And then the Pro-C editorial board will evaluate those response letters and will determine the number of papers to be published, the acceptance rate, according to the high standards of quality typically expected on the Proceeding of the Combustion Institute. This process is the first time it's happening in the history of our community. So we expect there will be some evolution as the papers come in to ASPACC as well as to the other sections. So there'll be a regular communication between this ASPACC Technical Program Committee and the Pro-C editorial board to clarify the process once we get the papers and start conducting the review process. And we will, of course, inform the community as this process evolves. Next slide. So I finally like to highlight that we will continue the tradition of awards at ASPACC 2025. There will be best paper awards presented at the conference based on the technical quality of the contributed papers. And each of these best paper awards will receive a $500 certificate. And then Young Investigator Awards will also be provided for the PhD students, postdocs, and early career researchers in ASPACC that have the potential to become the future leaders in the broad field of combustion. and each of these investigator awards will be worth $250 US. So I'd like to close now and thank you all for listening. Hopefully you have questions. We'll be happy to take them at the end.
Okay, thank you very much, Manny and Zheng. Okay, so for the audience, if you have any questions, you can submit through Q&A. So now we move to the last presentation, which will be given by Professor Wiley Chen from Nanyang Technological University. So Wiley, please.
All right. Thank you for the introductions. Thank you, Assaad, Manny, and Chen for the previous sessions. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, please full screen mode.
Yes, I'm going into it. All right. So I think this works for everyone. And we are a little bit slow on time, so I can be as brief as I need to be for this part, but this is the fun part because I'm tasked to introduce Singapore. And I think what is missing in Huangwei is maybe introductions that I'm also a proud Singaporean, so very happy to be doing this for the conference, for ASPACC conference. I'm also the co-chair for the local organizing committee. Right, so what we have planned for this part of the webinar, I would just be covering three main topics, doing some wordplay there. I think first I would do discussions on what is considered as hot in Singapore in terms of the combustion research, and then second I would touch on some fun things to do in Singapore. And finally, I want to just show the appreciations of our potential participants for coming into Singapore and just share with you some of the initiatives that I think Chen earlier mentioned. And I will just expand a little bit on some of these things that we do to make it not only a technically insightful trip for you, but also memorable visit to Singapore, especially if it's the first time for you to be coming to Singapore. Right, so to begin, I just want to talk about Singapore in general, in case like we are not the most familiar with this island country. And some little fun fact of it, Singapore in fact is not a single island. Recently I learned that we have as many as 64 islands, satellite islands, main islands, as well as some artificial islands. We are considered as one of the rare functional real city-states. That's something that I just read up yesterday as well. Although our history dates back to more than 800 years ago, we can find a lot of some of these documents on that, but really we start to modernize when the British visit Singapore in the 1890. I'm just going to skip over the history. By 1959. That's when we gain some sovereignty from the British. And finally, we declared independence August 9, 1965. I mentioned this specifically to show you how young as a country Singapore really is, right? We are always up to this point about 60 plus of our celebrations of the National Day. So as for some further statistics, we are also very small. I think that is quite well known, 740 kilometers square specifically. And natural resources barren, meaning that we do not have our own water, we do not have a lot of land, as you can see from the size itself, to grow our own vegetations. And we kind of import all these things from our neighbors. On the other hand, what we do have a lot is people. Okay, we do have a populations of 6 million by this year, and in terms of population density, we are the second highest number as a country itself. So I present to you all the statistics as well as my map here, just to let you know where we are residing in terms of the land size. Once again, we can't even be spotted at the global scale. Always you will need to zoom in to see this, what we call a little red dot. That's how we affectionately refer to as Singapore. And this is how the country is shaped like, our country flag here. Which resemble a lot. We take a lot of semblance towards our Singapore sections of the Combustion Institute that has been recently approved by the main sections. Anyway, back to the point that I'm presenting all these numbers to lead on to what a country like Singapore, so small and so lack of resources, what can we actually bring onto the table in terms of combustion community? In fact, quite a lot of it. If my slides move on, yep, right. So moving on to the next topic, right? What's hot in Singapore in terms of our combustion research? Plenty, and I will just be brief in this. We don't need to go too much into the details. On the left here, we are showing you the main big players in terms of academics as well as funding a lot of this academic research, in particular for our combustion research. The two oldest universities in Singapore, this is where Huangwei is from, National University of Singapore, and myself from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Each of us has our own capabilities dealing with different topics related to combustions. We have some history, some legacy projects that I will just briefly run through later. Then this is National Research Foundations of Singapore, NRF, kind of like the equivalents of US, what we have as an NSF, I believe. And funding a lot of all this research. Also, we have a big player, Agencies for Science, Technologies and Research Singapore, or in short, we call it ASTAR. And this will be another kind of like, sometime they will act as the grantor, and sometime they will also be participating actively in the research as a research institute on its own. So the trend that we are looking is we have a growing presence in terms of combustion research. This is a plot that we extract in terms of Singapore scientific paper affiliated with the two journals accepted and published within the Combustion Institute, and we are seeing a steady growth. So all in all, we do perform combustion research. I think it's the take-home message from this slide here. Then moving on to talk a little bit about opportunities. So I want to raise the point that why Singapore is even concerned about this combustion research in the first place. Mostly we are very into being one of the country to contribute to decarbonizations, to the emission problem. And this is one very recent article that was just reporting on our Minister of Environment and Sustainability Development. So Minister Grace Fu talking about her participations or Singapore's participations in COP29. I'm sure you all know what that event stands for and how Singapore, oh, sorry about that. Singapore, for some reason, we are still classified as a developing country, but we are going to be contributing to fighting global climate and also to hold up the Paris Agreement, essentially. And so from this, I'll lead on to a lot of the efforts. In particular, there's this NRF Decarbonization Grand Challenge grant, and structured in a very systematical way. We try to tackle what you see here from the lower end, a lot of the lower technological readiness level. So we are talking about fundamental research. We support those. And then we are also going to some of the mid-range TRL as well as high TRL for real applications. We cover the whole range. It is quite a sizable grant and tackling a whole series of different topics from chemical kinetics to engine, gas turbine, safety, fuel safety, so on and so forth. It is collaborative efforts. And so we are always reaching out to more partners besides the two universities that I've mentioned earlier, Nanyang Technological University, NTU, and National University of Singapore, NUS. We also have Cambridge presence in Singapore. This is CARES, one of their center of excellence. And then we have also Tohoku University from Japan participating in a lot of our research together. You see ELSA a lot in the previous slide, so I thought it is worth mentioning. ELSA, or in its elaborated form, means Low Carbon Energy Research Program. Actually, we have already gone on to phase 2 started in 2021, and there were 12 projects awarded 55 million. And now we have a phase 2 that was just recently awarded in 2024, another 55 million. So a combination of 100 over millions of investment from the government is coming directly from our Ministry of Trade and Industry, as well as, again, the NRF, National Research Foundations. You can see from the table here, so I'm not going to go through all these details about how the program is trying to gun for the decarbonization effort. We're promoting a lot of direct hydrogen-related programs and also supporting a lot of this emerging technology. One trend that we are seeing grow in Singapore is the also further support of ammonia-related project. It is becoming a pretty big area, as will be pointed out in some of the individual efforts that I'm going to next move on to. So just to give you a brief overview on this ELSA 1, ELSA 2 that appeared in the previous slide. Okay, so I think that's the broad picture. You can take it that Singapore does have the resources to support some of this combustion research necessary. I think we all come from similar fields. Sometimes combustion research does take money to get into. And Singapore might be able to just support it, and we are very open to collaborations. Now, I want to just briefly cover some of our individual efforts to show you what really has been done. And starting, of course, special mentioning of Huangwei's group, because he is the man who made this conference happen in Singapore. He went through the whole process of the bidding and then bringing ASPACC to Singapore, initiating the startup of the Singapore sections of the Combustion Institute. As for ASPACC, he is the chair of the local organizing committee, as well as part of the team for the technical program committee, so the LOC and the TPC. I wouldn't have time to go through all this individual work, but this is prepared by Huangwei's group to show you that his work at NUS will cover from theoretical analysis to measurements under the research methods, also research interests dealing with fundamental flames like turbulent flames, detonations, and to more applied cases these days, because we are talking a lot about electrification. So we combustion people are obviously interested in how battery catches fire, and Huangwei's group has developed some simulations capabilities for it. Do feel free to send in your questions if any of these topics interest you from here. Right, and then I also want to move to mention some work by our steering committee chair, Prof. Chen from NTU, and this is in collaborations with one of our Center of Excellence at NTU called the Maritime Energy Sustainable Development. Singapore is a port city, according to our history. So we do have a huge maritime presence and therefore huge initiative. And this work, even though it's a bit dated, to be honest, so the whole test bed is mentioned here to just show you what we have done in terms of the grand scales of things. So we do build a big test bed. I think it's the takeaway here. Unfortunately, this test bed has completed its life cycles for our research, currently decommissions, making way for new progressions in the university, which is the building of a train line. We have a train coming all the way into NTU. Just to digress a little bit, if you are planning to visit NTU during the trip to Singapore, it is quite remote. Currently, we still don't have direct access to the university. That's why we are building a train line into the university. Hence, we have to decommission this, which is, I think, a characteristic of Singapore, because a lot of our facilities, they have turnaround time, let's put it that way, and that's just to make way for progressions. Nonetheless, I think the test bed is still worth mentioning because it is quite significant. During its time, it tests a lot of different research areas, from alternative fuels to waste heat recovery, and all in the directions of a marine engine. And on a similar note, something that is more recent, we also have our members from the local organizing committee, Prof. Wenmin Yang, dealing also with transportations and power generations. And like I've mentioned, so ammonia combustions, ammonia engines are getting the spotlight these days a lot. And down here, I would just briefly mention Prof. Yang's group has successfully published the first Nature paper in the field of a marine engine, and it is ammonia marine engine focused. And this work will be done under the Center of Hydrogen Innovations of NUS, and some examples of the systems of the facilities that we have over in also at our NUS area. Right, in the interest of time, I will just also move quickly and really cannot finish discussing all these topics. So I'll just present to you some of the work. You can take a look at the slide while I'll just give you the key points. In terms of tinkering with engines, so this is another example from another local organizing committee member, Professor Fei Duan. He's from NTU. And he has developed Stirling engine power generation system. I think the key point here is the world's first prototype about 4 years ago that it can go all the way up to a kilowatt of energy generations using the Stirling engine concept, which is over here if you are interested in the schematics and the design. And then switching the tone a little bit, we also go into fundamental research. We have capabilities here. This is joint work by NTU Professor Daniel New, also part of the local organizing committee. He's an experimentalist, and this is quite early work of deflagrations, detonations research. We have such facilities available at this Temasek lab at NUS. The current director, Professor Bu Chong-Hu, is also part of our local organizing committee. Right, so this is their capabilities. They have test facilities. I think we have test cell for doing some of this big combustion research, and some point in the history we have done also DDT before. Right, so you have those on record. I will just move on. Now let's talk about what is also hot in Singapore besides our combustion research. Some of the things to do. In brief, there are the usual recommendations. Right, besides doing good research work, Singapore is really also a fun place, and I hope to sell this to you. First, this will be the typical area if you are coming to Singapore for the first time, right? Do put this into your checklist. Starting with the Merlion's Park, called this the Singapore's icon, is our mascot, but also do visit it at night, because this is like the $1 million views. I think Singapore, if you ask me what is special about it, will be the night view pictures. And this is Merlion Park, Merlion being our icon once again, and the view that you can take some nice pictures there. Singapore Botanic Gardens, I think, is kind of undersold, but just to promote it further, is Singapore's first UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a nice visit to take a walk quite close to the city center. And then some of the more recent things, we have Gardens by the Bay over here, is partly man-made, and then we have a lot of the plantations. It's basically a gardens with urban architecture that are quite fascinating. We talk about the satellite islands of Singapore. So there's this place called Sentosa Island, within which there's the aquarium, quite famous, that you can choose to visit. And if wildlife is to your liking, we have the Mandai Wildlife Reserve. I put here, there are actually 4 parks now. That's why we upgraded into a whole wildlife reserve. Just something for you to consider while you are having some free time in Singapore. And finally, Jewel, which is a huge shopping mall within the premise of Changi Airport, Singapore's international airport. And so if you are maybe departing and you have some free time, you would like to go to the airport earlier, this is highly recommended. Inside there, this picture is iconic indoor featuring of a waterfall. Right, so these will be the usual recommendations once again. I also prepare something different if you are more adventurous. So I've been following up on the news just to prepare for this particular presentation. Like I say, I'm excited Singaporeans welcoming you to Singapore, right? So this is quite an interesting report that in particular for the Chinese, you'll be quite familiar to this this app called Little Red Book. For our other participants, you can also take a look at it. I've also included some of the link. You can see what are some interesting places that people starts to come to Singapore for, besides the usual recommendations. So these and by no means they are secluded. Actually, you can have lines forming just to be able to take a picture at this road less traveled. Then Singapore is really famous for its food, culinary. On the left here, I want to mention that do give a try to what we call our hawker food. Is not exactly street food, but close to it. It usually will be housed within what we call a hawker center, something that is of this picture that you will see. It's a big area with different stores that you can buy. And some of these pictures here to show you that Singapore is a big mixed pot in terms of our ethnicity. We have all different groups within, and hence the food culture is quite diverse as well. Most importantly, I highly recommend you to try some of this hawker food because we have been inscribed into UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2020. Now, if you have deep pockets and this street food doesn't satisfy you enough, I also want to mention that Singapore is quite a good place for now going to the other end of the spectrum, Michelin star restaurants. This is the latest number of restaurants that we have that have been awarded the stars. In terms of 3 stars Michelin's restaurant, we also have 3 of them in Singapore. We are ranked 11th in terms of the numbers of 3-star restaurant, along with Taiwan and Denmark. Now, what's food without drinks, right? So this is my weekend activities with my wife, I admit it. And we do have quite good bars in Singapore for those who are interested in a cocktail nightcap. This is another article for you to look into. Right, so I'm at the end of what I needed to share with you. So we mentioned that there are some efforts that the local organizing committee has put in place, and Chen just now earlier mentioned about the program. So this is some special events that we have consolidated and we are planning for, and some of the potential areas that we will be executing all this receptions, networking, lunch, banquet, and farewell dinner. I will just zoom into the excursion and just to leave you with this. We are planning for 2 options in the excursions to visit different parts of Singapore. Both of them will end at this iconic Marina Bay Sands MBS Sky Park Observations. This boat-like building should be quite famous in Singapore these days when you are taking a look around the pictures that you see of the country. Okay, my final reminder, whatever you choose to do in terms of the excursions or visit Singapore on your own, this is just to preempt you, Singapore's weather. As you can see, same color all throughout. We joke within the local community that Singapore only has 2 seasons. It's the sunny and the rainy seasons. May is not the worst, but do be prepared to have to bring an umbrella along as well. So that's typical things that we will take along in Singapore. Water bottle as well as an umbrella. Google Map works just fine in Singapore. If you need to be calling some of the cabs, we have these 3 apps that I have just shown the name here to prepare you. Thank you very much. I think that's all that I want to share about introductions to Singapore, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Wally, for your very detailed introduction to Singapore and also considerate recommendations to the delegates. Okay, so in the following, we will move to a short Q&A session. So just now, I saw many has questions, right? You want to ask yourself?
No, I'm very excited by Professor Chan's presentation. And I think everybody should now have more motivation to visit.
Okay. So then, then we take the questions from the audience. So first one is, how many papers will be accepted by proceed. So who want to ask this question?
Well, maybe I'll
Yeah.
talk to this
Assaad,
one,
please.
and then I guess the program chairs may want to comment on that. Look, quality is of the essence. So it's and that at the end of the day is what's going to dictate the acceptances. We plan to have one complete issue per conference, but the number of papers is fluid. So just I'm really reversing the answer to the authors. Make sure that your papers are of top quality, submitted as an 8-pager, and then let it flow, because quality then will guide that paper to its destination. Don't worry about the numbers, I guess. Just focus on submitting a top quality submission, and then it will follow its right path.
Okay, thanks, Assaad. So any more comments from Zheng and Mani?
I just add, when we met with the Prof editors, they also said this is the first time. So we are not prescribing any limits yet. Okay. So because this is the first time this process is happening, they will be looking at the submissions from all the different sections, the conferences, and then evaluating. So again, quality in the end can never be denied. So that's the best way to get the paper in.
Okay. Yeah, so the answer is the quality is most important. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, there's nothing, it's not new here in that, for authors, think of it as if, hey, you're submitting a paper to the normal symposium, right? To the even year symposium. So this is not going to be any different.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Then the second question is, will there be any consideration for extending the final paper submission deadline in case of any last-minute issues, such as glitches in results or other unforeseen circumstances?
Well, that's in your hand and the program chairs, Huangwei, so it's up to you.
At present, we stick to the deadline that's given, and this is again customary of our community. When the deadline is set, we meet the deadlines. Yes. So please check the system earlier, submit, do a trial run. Don't wait till the last minute and be susceptible to glitches. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have another question from Q&A. Can we submit the supplemental information for the 4-page and 8-page papers? Yeah.
I would think definitely for your 8-page paper, if it's more information is required to be added. I see there's no issue there as in any publication. For the 4 pages, I don't think it's customary in past to submit a supplementary material. Assaad or Huangwei, do you have any insights there?
Yeah, you're right, Mani. The answer is no, not for the 4-pager, but for the 8-pager, assuming that it proceeds towards the procedure venue, then the answer is yes.
Yes, I agree with that. I think for 8 pages, we can basically, prepare for the even year symposium format. Yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so is there any other questions from the audience?
Maybe I ask a point to clarify on the supplementary information since we are on it. I think we should maybe clarify whether it will be taken into considerations for the review, or should we just be focusing on the main part of this 8 pages?
I think it definitely will be considered. And as we write the 8-page paper, you will refer to the supplementary material if there is any, and that's part of the review process.
then yeah, I guess then it will be a fine line. So for the authors, like we were emphasizing on the quality and also maybe don't use the supplementary information as a way to extend the number of pages of your submissions. But we will be looking into the supplementary informations as well.
Right, yeah, which would be similar to, again, even year proceeding submission. The quality of the paper is assessed based on the presentation in the 8 pages and the appropriateness of the supplementary material. But it's definitely not well reviewed or well regarded when people try to extend the paper into the supplementary material.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, next question is in Q&A. So hello, this is Anya from ANSYS. As the next seminar it is on battery safety, can we submit on this topic? So I can answer this. So yes, so you can submit the topic. So if you are interested in presenting in this webinar series, so just write an email to me and we can have further discussion offline. Yeah. Okay, I think now all the questions are here. Okay, so if no more questions, I think we would like to close this session. I would like to thank all the speakers here today to share us your insights about the ASPACC 2025. And we would like to see you all next year in Singapore. Yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks
See you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.